We'd like to welcome to our program today a woman who is no stranger to television and moviegoers, and June Lockhart, the actor.
Hello, how are you? It's so nice to be with you.
June, so good to be with you today. We want to talk a little bit about how you got involved in the motion picture business. Can we take you back to your
Are you going all the way back to that?
Well, sure, I'd love to.
All right, well, how long have you got?
Well, we have 30 minutes.
My parents were actors, Kathleen and June Lockhart. Most audience people seem to remember immediately who he is when I describe him as the judge in The Miracle on 34th Street, the man who had to decide whether or not that was really Kris Kringle. And then, of course, every Christmas, my mother and father play Mr. and Mrs. Bob Cratchit in the Dickens Christmas Carol movie with Reginald Owen that is played every year. And that was my debut film, and I was 12 years old. And so that was quite a treat to be able to do that film. And, of course, we did it just as we had no idea it was going to turn out to be a classic. So we did that in 1938. So here we are. My God, how many years later?
June, do you think it was your parents that instilled this desire to be in the industry?
Yes, it was a very natural and easy sort of unfolding for me of just doing. I did a few films during my teens because my father would not permit me to be under contract until I had graduated from Westlake School for Girls, for which I am ever grateful. And then I then also after that went to Broadway, but there was no pressure. There was never any angst about doing it. It came easily. I handled it easily, and it was just has always been a lovely experience, and particularly when I was getting started. And then after I had married and had 2 daughters, I was very glad that I had a career because as it turned out, all the financial load was on my shoulders.
Can you tell us your children? Did they get involved in this industry as well?
My elder daughter is an actress. Her name is Anne, and my younger daughter is a designer of beautiful jewelry, which is seen on ER and General Hospital and Bold and the Beautiful, Seventh Heaven, Step by Step, many television shows. She does beautiful classic earrings and necklaces.
As you continued through school and eventually got out of school, did you go on to college or did you immediately go?
No, I went under contract to MGM, but I'm an inveterate reader, and I participate in activities which are of great interest to me. I read and read and read, and then I'm a political journalism buff, which I've been doing since the 50s when I did a White House current events news quiz show with the White House press, and asked at that time if any civilian had ever been permitted to travel with the White House press to see what goes on backstage. And I began doing that with Eisenhower, and because Jim Haggerty, his then press secretary, credited me. And ever since that time, no matter what the administration or who the press secretary is, I have always had this carte blanche to go to the briefings, no matter where the White House is, because, of course, like when Reagan was president, the White House was out here in Santa Barbara.
And is that where you reside now, is in that area, California?
I live in Santa Monica, yes.
Okay. My age is 50. I don't mind saying that. And my first really...
I don't mind saying that I'm 73, so...
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, I wasn't going to ask that, and it's really none of my business.
Well, it's a matter of public record and has been ever since I was born, and my great desire now is to make sure that it's accurate.
Okay. June, my first experience with you was the mother of Timmy in the television series Lassie.
Yes, but of course I had done years of television before that and been on Broadway. But, yes, I did the Lassie show for 6 years and would be with it yet if they hadn't changed the format. I loved that show. That was great. And then when they wrote us out, I went immediately into Lost in Space for 3 years and then subsequently into Petticoat Junction. And I've been on General Hospital since 1984 intermittently, playing Felicia's grandmother, along with all the other guest appearances I've made on many other series.
How do you find time to get everything done?
Well, you pace yourself.
Okay, I want to take in that time span that probably a lot of our listeners are familiar with, and I'm not, and that's just before Lassie, some of the things that you did in the industry at that point.
I was doing guest appearances on many of the shows that were on at that time, like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Oh no, I did that after Lassie. The Pulitzer Playhouse, Celanese Playhouse, Schlitz Playhouse, Studio One, Theater Guild of the Air, the United States Steel Hour, all those live TV shows, the Robert Montgomery Presents, all of that type, you know. And I did them one a month for years.
Did you find it was difficult to go from the motion picture industry into television when you eventually?
No, it's all the same thing.
Didn't matter.
Learn your lines, you hit your mark, and say the speech.
What happened to the television show Lassie that intrigues me? Didn't you have, it seemed like, did you change husbands a couple of times in that
No,
series?
I didn't.
Always
No,
had the
there
same?
were 3 different women played the mother. I was the last, and I seem to be the only one they remember. Jan Clayton originated the role, and then Cloris Leachman played it for a fast 20 weeks or so. And then then the ownership of the show changed, and they hired me.
And what about the young actor?
But the only husband I ever worked with was Hugh Riley.
That's right. Now, is he still living?
No, he died about a month ago.
Oh, is that right? I wasn't aware of that. What about the actor Timmy?
That's John Provost.
Right. What is he doing?
He sells. He's involved in mortgage real estate business up in Santa Rosa, California.
Is this someone that you stay in contact with?
Oh yeah, we do keep in touch. I've kept in touch with all the people that I have worked with, the girls from Petticoat and John Provost, and of course the Lost in Space people. We have always had a great affectionate regard for each other, and we do a lot of conventions together and appearances.
You know, June, you hear a lot of talk about how many different dogs were used for the role of Lassie. What's the set us straight on that?
There were 4 main Lassies during the 6 years that I did the show. In addition to which, there was a stunt dog, there was a dog that did the running, and a dog that did the stand-in stuff, because only human beings can work 14 or 15 hours a day without a nap.
Well, it certainly was a good show, and I think what's interesting about your career is that you've been able to bridge the generation gaps going from that era into Lost in Space, which is a whole...
It's really quite remarkable when I do these conventions, the autograph conventions, to find that there are from all 4 series, not counting the films that I did before that, people who have been watching all my life, you know. And I don't look too much unlike I did when I was Lassie's mother, so when they come up to the table, I hope they don't seem to be disappointed.
Well, you sound just like you did back then watching the Lassie series as well. I mean, your voice sounds the same. What about working on a soap opera like General Hospital? Is that difficult?
Yes, that's the hardest work I think there is. But at least there's an end in sight, which is the end of the day. I think that doing theater is the most grueling. But I don't know how those actors do it who do a 60-minute show every single day and learn those reams and reams and reams of dialogue. It's just amazing to me.
How many takes do they usually take?
Just the one. And
Just
then
the
if
one?
you miss a line, they'll do a pickup on just that one line of dialogue, and then it will be cut into the tape.
I see.
But no, it's really quite remarkable. My hat's off to them. I think they're superb.
If you've just joined us, we're visiting this morning with actress June Lockhart. June, you mentioned that you like to read a lot. I wonder if this goes back to maybe when you were working in movies or television and there was some downtime. Is that when you would read?
Oh, yes, I've read all my life. I can remember when we were doing movies at MGM when I was there, shooting Son of Lassie or whatever other films I was in. Yeah, I was always reading. And from one of my earliest memories is of childhood. I was less than 7 or 8 years old, reading the cartoons in the New Yorker. and the New York Times was delivered every day, and the newspapers, books, and they were always around our home. And my father was a writer, a lyricist. When we moved out here, he formed the Authors Club. The people that were entertained at our home were publishers, columnists, people of literature. They were very, very much in the literary arts. So I was raised around these people, newspaper men, people who were interviewers, you know.
Mm-hmm. Who of all of the folks that you've worked with, maybe you could mention a couple actors and actresses that maybe in different points of your career just still sticks in your mind that you were just awestruck by them, working with them?
There was a wonderful actor named John Anderson, and I did a Hitchcock show with him called The Second Wife.
Mm-hmm.
He was a brilliant actor. He is now dead, but that was great fun working with him. We very much enjoyed working with Guy Williams. He was a charming man and a bright, intelligent, well-informed, educated man, and we were all very saddened by his death. As a matter of fact, I put together a dinner in which his widow and their two kids, who used to come and visit us on the set all the time, and their spouses, and then the kids from Lost in Space and their wives and husbands, and we all spent the whole evening just talking about how fond of Guido we were, and as we used to call him because he was Italian. And we all exchanged stories. Why his kids told us what he did at home, and we told them what went on the set. It was a wonderful evening, and I believe quite unique.
June, are you surprised that still on television you can see programs like Lassie, Lost in Space? They're still continuing to be shown. Does that surprise you?
Well, of course, that's the advent of cable.
Right.
Petticoat Junction is such fun for me to see. It's on quite late here, but I didn't watch it much while I was shooting it, so it's great fun to see it. That was a grand show to do, to be able to work with those wonderful character actors and do those 22-minute sketches like that. Yeah, that was neat.
Uncle Joe, right?
Yeah, Buck Buchanan.
Right. What a wonderful actor he was.
But the whole cast was superb.
Oh, absolutely. And but I guess the question is, when you were doing these, you just thought it was a job. You'd be surprised.
Exactly. It's always just a job. You don't think you're doing something that's going to become a cult or a big show for the eons. Can you hang on just 1 minute, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Hello.
June, can you tell us a little bit about a program that you got involved in, I see from your bio, that is intriguing to me, and that's the International Hearing Dog Incorporated.
Yes, they're headquartered in Denver, and this is a program in which dogs from the shelter are trained to be ears for the deaf. And we're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of this program next June, and we have... the dogs are trained for the specific needs of the deaf person or the hard of hearing. Like a wake-up, when the alarm goes off, the dog would jump on the bed and awaken the owner. When the kettle boils, when there's somebody at the door, when the phone rings, in fact, there is a hearing dog and a master working in the White House. And then, let's see, there are two senators who have people in their offices who are deaf, and they come in the morning with their dogs. The dog stays right at the desk while they do their work. It's a most successful program, and that is in Henderson, Colorado. And again, anybody who is interested in that would write to International Hearing Dog, Henderson, Colorado, and it will be delivered.
Well, we have
just outside of Denver.
Right, and we quite often have the Linda Hughes from the animal shelter that comes on the program and tells us about dogs. Are you looking for particular breeds of dogs, or just
no?
anything?
Any breed will do. But we found that pure breeds, the mutts are the best, and the smaller dogs seem to be more efficient.
Do you run into any kind of problems with these type of dogs getting into public places?
No.
I mean...
No, we had to go to court to get it approved that they could go on planes. We had to, and so that's done. And when they were out in public, they have the little vest on that they wear, which says "hearing dog."
That must help.
Although often you will see on doors of banks and things, no dogs allowed except seeing eye dogs. So it's quite a process of education to let people know that the hearing dogs are as important in their way as the seeing eye dogs are.
What, at this point in your career, you mentioned that you've entered your 70s. What are you still doing in the way of working in the public arena?
Well, I've been doing a lot of conventions. Just last week I made a speech for the General Services Administration on the fact that the government is going green. As you know, GSA is the main buyer and seller of products around the world for all our government buildings. Everything from paint to toilet paper to automobiles, everything. And they are doing all things that can be recycled. So I've made a couple of speeches for them, one in Kansas City and one in Portland, Oregon, last week. I also been doing, in November, I'll be in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., doing an autograph convention with Mark Goddard and a couple of other cast members, probably. And that's always fun to do. On November 10th, I've mentioned to you that we have done a special, which is called Lost in Space Forever. That will be on. My work continues on General Hospital, and it just doesn't stop.
Now, you've also been involved in helping with a book that concerns Lost in Space. Tell us about how that got started.
This is the definitive Lost in Space book. It's called Lost in Space Forever. And I'll give you the address in case somebody listening after I talk about it feels they'd like to inquire about it. The address is P.O. Box 3207, Santa Monica, 90402. There, and I'll send them a card about it.
Okay.
And a letter about pictures and other things that are available. The book is the definitive Lost in Space book. It has all the episodes in it. It has pictures in it that I had never seen. I was very involved in the editing of it, too. And it has interviews and anecdotes from all the various actors, stories about each of the episodes. They've interviewed directors, set designers, special effects people, guest actors, guest writers, the various line producers, costumers. It's really the full book. And at the very end, then we have a couple of pages of what we call Smithisms, which are Dr. Smith's talking to the robot, you bubble-headed booby, and things like that.
Right. Why did you write the book? Apparently, there's still a huge number of people that just can't get enough of Lost in Space.
That's right. That's exactly why it was put out. We did it a couple of years ago, and it was never properly promoted. So I then bought them all up so that I could own them myself and sell them and promote them.
Do you think there'll ever be another series like that, or are there any?
I don't know.
No discussion that you're aware of?
No.
Yet? Okay. Well, would you do it again?
Of course.
Okay.
I'd have to be the grandmother of Grandmother Robinson.
June, tell us a little bit about an autograph convention. Here in Montana, we don't even really understand what that is. Is that one just a bunch of actors?
Well, an enormous facility is taken over, like an indoor place. Well, I suppose up there it would be. Where are you? Great Falls?
Great Falls, yes.
I see. Would you have a hockey rink there?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, they would probably. Do you play basketball there in the summer?
Oh, it's mainly just skating.
I see. Well, some big event, some big convention center is taken over, and all the people, the dealers, have booths, and they sell all kinds of space show memorabilia. The actors from a lot of the different shows, not only necessarily space shows or fantasy shows, are all given a long table. We put our pictures on it, or books, or things that are for sale. People come up. They're thrilled to meet us. We sign the autographs, and they then they buy the autographs, is what they do, for the pictures that are available.
Mm-hmm. Is it fun to get out?
And we do them for the 3 days in a row, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Is it fun to get out and talk with these folks that are fans?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Something else I wanted to ask you about that Pat sent me, your agent, that just intrigued me, and that's Thomas Edison played a part in I guess,
yes,
in your life somehow.
My parents were introduced by Thomas Edison. They did a play for him in 1922. My father had done one for him in 21, and then in 1922, my mother joined the company. Edison was very advanced as far as promoting his inventions, and each year he would send out a trainload of people, which was called the Edison Dealers Convention Caravan, or something like that. And they would do a play, and he, rather than having, as we do now, when all the dealers will come into a town and a company will put on a big convention to promote their stuff, in those days he took the convention to the dealers, to the Edison dealers across the country. And this was a particularly, this particular event was for promoting his new gramophone. And so they played New York and Chicago and St. Louis and then Texas, and they went all the way across the country and up to the north, and by the time they got to Lake Louise and Banff, Daddy made his move. He had fallen in love with Mummy.
Do you remember much about Thomas Edison?
I never met him.
You never did?
He died when I was 6.
Okay, that was my next question. I was kind of curious if you'd ever met him or remembered him. What do you see will happen to let me back up just a moment. I'd like to talk a little bit about the changes that we've seen in television in generations. Growing up with shows like Lassie, Dennis the Menace, I'm trying to think of some of those, The Lone Ranger, and now we've gone into a complete different arena of television, some of it violent. Do you think that there's been that much of a change between the 50s
Well, yes, there
today?
certainly seems to be a change, and a lot of people complain about it. I like the reality shows, and I think it is absolutely magnificent that we have CNN, C-SPAN, Headline News, MSNBC, and that. But, of course, this feeds my love of journalism. I think that the cartoon, some of the kids' programming is wonderful. Some of it is pretty violent. But there is a choice, and I am against censorship in any form, and I feel that it's quite wonderful that it's out there and we can turn off what we don't want to look at, and parents can supervise what they feel their children shouldn't see.
You mentioned that you're interested in politics. Just this week we had Senator Mike Mansfield, who was in politics for a number of years. He's still working at night.
Of course.
And he was on and had a nice chat with him, and asked him, too, about the political arena and the political situation in Washington. You like to be involved in politics. Where do you see politics in general? Is it getting too down and dirty, or what?
I think that now of course, all these things have gone on for years since Adam and Eve, but it just wasn't spoken about. And certainly in our government, we know that there have been dalliances, shall we say, but this, I believe, has a subtext. This whole situation is being engineered and pushed along and kept from drifting off and getting out of the limelight because of a great deal of money that's involved and by other forces.
Do you think that because communications are so much different now than they were 20 or 30 years ago, that's the reason, too, the media?
Well, certainly there is more of a market in which to print this type of story.
Well, June, we're not going to take much more of your time. We want to mention again that, and you didn't mention that, I guess it's the Fox network that the special will be on?
Yes, it's the Fox network, and the show is called Lost in Space Forever. and it brings us all up to date, what we're doing now, what we're involved in, and what people have been, what's been happening. Opposition.
Mm-hmm.